She doesn't sit there thinking, let me test this man's confidence. That's not how it works. But psychology shows something uncomfortable. Women subconsciously scan for signals in the first moments of interaction. Tiny behavioral cues, micro reactions, emotional stability under pressure. And here's the part most men never realize. You are being evaluated long before you think the interaction even starts. The way you respond to silence, the way you handle teasing, the way you react when you're slightly ignored. All of it gets recorded mentally. So the real question is, what exactly is she seeing in you that you don't even know you're showing? In this video, you're going to understand the 7 psychological triggers mature women unconsciously use to measure a man's confidence. Not games, not manipulation, but patterns of human perception rooted in social and evolutionary psychology. Excited. Once you understand this, you'll start seeing interactions differently. You'll notice moments where attraction is either being built or quietly shut down. We're going to break down real behavioral science, things linked to emotional regulation, dominance cues, social calibration, and attachment response systems. And by the end, you'll stop guessing what went wrong in past interactions, because you'll actually be able to see it happening in real time. Let's get into it. Imagine this. You're in a conversation, everything is flowing smoothly, then suddenly she delays her response. Or gives a short, flat answer. Most men panic internally, they overthink, they try harder, they adjust tone, they fill silence. But here's what's happening psychologically. She's observing your emotional stability under disruption. In psychology, this relates to emotional regulation and self-soothing behavior under uncertainty. Confident individuals don't escalate emotionally when feedback changes. A mature woman isn't looking for perfection, she's watching your reaction to imperfection. If you stay steady, calm tone, unchanged energy, you signal internal security. If you shift emotionally too fast, it signals dependency on external validation. So what should you do? Stay consistent. Don't chase emotional equilibrium from her response. Maintain your baseline presence, because she's not reacting to what you say. She's reacting to what changes inside you when she pulls slightly away. And that leads directly into the next trigger. You meet her, conversation is good, then you start subtly seeking approval, over-explaining, over-clarifying, repeating yourself. You think you're being clear, but psychologically, you're leaking neediness. Neediness isn't about words, it's about emotional posture. Attachment theory explains this through anxious signaling, when someone unconsciously tries to secure closeness through excessive engagement. To a mature woman, this registers instantly, not consciously, but emotionally. And here's the paradox. The more you try to be liked, the more unstable you appear. Instead, confident presence has space in it, breathing room, silence without fear. So the practical shift is simple. Say less, mean more. Don't fill gaps that don't need filling, because the moment you start chasing clarity, you lose perceived confidence. And that brings us to something even more subtle. She says something playful, slightly teasing, maybe even mildly challenging. Now there's a microsecond window. Do you react immediately with laughter or defense, or do you pause, process, and respond with calm control? That micro delay is powerful. In cognitive psychology, response latency often signals emotional processing depth. Fast emotional reactions signal impulsivity. Slightly measured responses signal control. A mature woman reads that instantly, not consciously, but as a feeling of groundedness. And here's where most men fail. They think speed equals confidence. It doesn't. It often signals emotional reactivity. So next time, don't rush your response. Let silence exist for a moment, then speak. Because that small pause communicates something powerful. You are not controlled by emotional pressure. And now we go deeper. Picture this scenario. You're in a group or public setting. Someone challenges your opinion lightly, maybe even jokes at your expense. Do you immediately defend yourself, or do you hold your frame? Frame theory in psychology refers to the mental structure that defines how you interpret interaction. Confident individuals don't abandon their frame under mild pressure. Mature women observe this very closely. Because if your identity collapses under light challenge, it suggests deeper instability under real stress. But if you stay calm, even lightly amused, you signal internal anchoring. The key is not dominance, it's stability. You don't need to win the moment. You need to remain unchanged by it. And when you master that, something shifts in how she perceives you emotionally. Now let's move to something even more subtle. She compliments you or shows interest. Now watch closely. Do you immediately seek more validation? Do you escalate behavior to maintain it, or do you accept it without emotional spike? This is where many men unknowingly lose attraction, because confidence is not in receiving validation, it's in not needing to extend it. From a psychological perspective, self-esteem stability is tied to internal versus external validation dependency. A mature woman tests this indirectly. She gives small signals of approval and watches your reaction. If you over-respond emotionally, she sees dependency. If you underreact completely, she sees disinterest. The balance is calm acceptance. Nothing more, nothing less. And this brings us to a midpoint reality check. Here's something most men never consider. Attraction isn't built in big moments. It's built in micro reactions. One study in social psychology found that people form lasting impressions within seconds, not based on what is said, but how emotionally stable the response pattern is. So ask yourself this: if she watched your last 10 interactions like a silent observer, would she see consistency or emotional volatility? Because that answer explains more than any pickup advice ever will. Let's continue. Now we get into something deeper. She shares something personal, a story, a vulnerability. Do you immediately mirror vulnerability to match hers? Or do you listen, absorb, and respond without over-identifying? Emotional intelligence research shows that rapport is not built through symmetry, but through calibrated response. Too much emotional mirroring too early creates perceived instability. Too little creates emotional distance. Confident presence sits in the middle. You are open, but not emotionally dependent on the moment. You validate her experience without losing your own center. And when a woman feels that balance, she doesn't just feel understood, she feels emotionally safe. And that leads to the final trigger. At some point, she unconsciously asks herself, would my emotional world feel stable around this man long term? Not in words, in feeling. She observes consistency, predictability of emotional tone, stability under tension. In attachment psychology, this relates to secure base behavior, the ability of a partner to remain steady during uncertainty. If your behavior is unpredictable emotionally, attraction becomes excitement without trust. But if your presence is stable, something shifts internally in her perception. You stop being just interesting and start becoming safe, and safety is where deeper attraction begins to form. Here's the truth most men misunderstand. Confidence is not loud. It's not dominant. It's not performance. Real confidence is emotional consistency under observation. Because every interaction you have with a woman is not a performance. It's a data point in how she experiences your emotional world. And she is not trying to break you. She is trying to understand if your presence adds stability or chaos to her life. That's it. When you stop trying to impress and start focusing on emotional steadiness, everything changes. You stop reacting, you start grounding, and ironically, that's when you become the most noticeable man in the room, without trying to be. If this resonated with you, it means you've probably already seen moments in your life where attraction shifted and you didn't understand why. So I want to ask you something simple. Have you ever experienced a moment where you felt her interest change, but you couldn't explain what you did wrong? Share it in the comments. And if you want the next level of this topic, the next video breaks down something even deeper: how women unconsciously decide within minutes whether a man is temporary attention or long-term potential. And remember this: you are not being judged by what you say. You are being understood by how you remain when nothing is certain.